Hi, this is Ginger Faith, and I'm here with Brian today, and we're going to be talking about how to avoid scams in your real estate investing, how to compress time if you want to retire in 3 to 5 years, and also why passive income is a myth and what's better. Look forward to having you.
Ginger Faith has been in this business for over 30 years. She's a broker, builder, and CEO who has flipped over 57 houses, several of which were featured on HGTV. Ginger is here to discuss how to compress time to retire in under 3 years, how to protect yourself from scammers, and why passive income is a myth and what she believes is better. Ginger, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Brian. I'm excited to be here today.
First, tell us a little bit about yourself. How'd you get started investing in real estate?
Back in the day when I was 8 years old, 30 years ago, when I was 8 years old, I started reading Tony Robbins and listening to him on cassette tape, as well as Robert Allen, who wrote No Money Down and a lot of the old greats. And so with Tony telling me I can do anything, and then Robert Allen giving me some ideas on real estate, basically I started a business where I was doing really well, working part-time, and then I didn't know what to do with the money. And so I started reading up on ideas, and Robert Allen gave these great ideas on how to invest in single-family homes. And he said, hey, if you invest in one single-family home per year for 10 years, that's your retirement account. And I thought, well, that's a great idea. Why don't I just buy a 6-family, and then I can compress time, and then I can have 6 all at once. And so that's how I got started in real estate. Now, the funniest story was when I was looking through the magazines, looking for a property to buy, I found a realtor who said to me, hey, this is a great idea. You want to get real estate rental property? And I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. And he goes, oh, my friend just bought a triplex, and all he does is collect rents, and he just bought a Jaguar. And I thought, oh, I can do that. I can collect rents and buy a Jaguar. So that's what I did. But that's not what happened.
Was it that easy? Just collect the rents and go buy a Jaguar?
Yeah. So I bought a fixer-upper, a big Victorian, which was weird colors. I think every time that the hardware store had a sale on paint, he would paint it. So part of it was red, then brown, then green. And it was just a ridiculous, it was just there to protect the wood. And it looked absolutely insane. But as an investment, I got a really good deal. I got it for probably about the third of the price that you would have gotten it 4 years earlier, because of the year and the time and the situation. It was clearly a distress situation, which is now, of course, everybody talks about forced appreciation and value add and all that. To me, I was just cheap. And I looked at the numbers and I'm like, I can't afford this, and the rents don't pencil out, but I can afford this and the rents will pencil out. So it was just kind of common sense back in the day that's become so, fancy, and it worked. So I bought this 6-family for a very beautiful Victorian. Bought it for $90,000.
Where was it located?
Outside Boston, Massachusetts. It had a widow's peak, and I moved into one of the apartments. The large one had a mahogany library, floor-to-ceiling windows, beautiful encasement, and beautiful architecture. And it was an amazing house, but the outside looked like crap, and the inside needed some work. But at the time, literally, people, as soon as I fixed the outside, I painted it cream, pink, and purple like a painted lady, which was radical in the area. Nobody did anything like that. And I was young and just frivolous, I think. And I just said, this will be pretty. And as soon as I did this, I had people lining up at the door to rent out from me. And I said, well, the apartment's not ready yet. And they're like, oh, we'll fix them up. Just get us some paint, some spackle, and we'll fix them up ourselves. So I had it rented out in like 2 months. And as soon as that happened, I was able to drive the price up naturally, lower my insurance. Lloyd's of London was the only one that would insure it, and pull cash out for my next acquisition.
You use a term that I think only people who invest in Victorians and historic homes would understand, and that's a painted lady. That's a real term. Can you explain what that means?
Basically, it means a house that's been painted 3 colors in pretty colors. They have to coordinate. They have to be pretty and light, and they use the three colors. And so when you look at Victorians, they often have beautiful architectural detail, and so it lends itself to that lovely look. You can't do that with just any style. It'll never work on an Eichler, or a Craftsman. But on a Victorian, it's really beautiful. There's a famous photograph in San Francisco with a street. I forgot the name of the street, but it's got all painted ladies of different colors, and it's just famous. When you see this picture, you know you're in San Francisco. And so it became a fashion thing after a while, and now it's considered acceptable. But back in the day, this was an area of puritanical basis. So it was darks and grays and browns and, just very heavy colors. And so to make it into a light color was really, I kind of became famous in the city that I was in, and the location was right on a corner. And so it was used as a landmark. So, but when you pass the colorful house, the, pink, purple, and cream house, take a right, so it ended up becoming a big funny thing.
I started with Robert Allen too. Like that was one of the first training programs I went through was Robert Allen. Did you ever buy any homes and no money down?
No, I never. Well, actually, technically, yes, because what I did do is I took cash out of that one to buy another. And then I got a really good deal on another house. It was a 9-family, but it was through someone I knew, and it was an estate. And so the bank wrapped my other 2 houses and gave me a no money down on the 9-family. So it was worth around $225 at the time. I got it for $125, but I got it for no money down because they securitized with the other 2 houses. So it was the 3rd property that I bought. So actually, yes, I never thought about that quite, that, but yeah, but so there's ways of doing it, right? So when this 9-family became available, I was like, that's a good deal, because now I got the bug, right? So I'm like, how do I get it? But because all my money's being allocated to a flip I was doing and to renovating the first 2. And I wasn't making a ton of money at the time. I was doing well, but not, I didn't have a bunch of down payment money coming from everywhere. I just had a modest business in comparison, but I got it no money down and it cash flowed immediately.
We're going to hopscotch around because you brought a lot of great topics with you. They don't all flow together, but I want to start with the HGTV. You've been featured on HGTV a couple of times?
Not me personally, but my houses have been.
Was it the host pretending that they were working on your house?
No, what it was, and they're a lot, they're all staged, right? So, in a sense of the story is not 100% true to character and true to form, right? So they make it, they make it more interesting. But the first one was a really beautiful neighborhood in Stockton, California. And it was right across the street from like a George Washington house, a big white house with the big white pillars. And it was a solid brick building in and out. It was an amazing house. And unfortunately, it went into disrepair. It became a hoarder house. It used to be magnificent, small, but magnificent and very unique. And I renovated that one. Had a bidding where I had over 300 people at the open house. I underpriced it to drive up traffic, and we did amazing on it. But with all the hoopla, somebody caught wind, and it was used for a House Hunters series. It was the fancy one, of the 3 that they were picking.
One of the 3 that they had.
It was one of the 3. It was the fancy one. But the funny thing was, so I wasn't the realtor representing the buyers. It was just my house, and they asked permission. And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. That's cool. But my stager was furious because they dummied it down. And we're all sitting there with our popcorn ready to watch the show. And she's telling all her friends, look at my staging was in here. And then they took things down and they dummied it down because it was too nice in comparison to the other ones. And so they neutralized it. And so it wasn't so good. But it was cool to be selected because of all the, because of location and the hoopla. And it was really done well. It was beautiful, amazing house. And then the second one was a really unique property. It was here also in California. It was a horse property. And I got it in a situation, same thing. It was in a distressed situation. We did a beautiful farmhouse style, really had a master craftsman working on some of the details in it. And I did this for a client. I helped her to resell it. But what was interesting is it was right during the fires, the California fires, and we ended up selling it to a couple who were gay. They were a lesbian couple, and they were also firefighters. So it kind of appealed from the buyer side to what is kind of in and what people are interested in and what people are supporting, right? They're supporting alternative lifestyle. They're supporting our firefighters, and the farmhouse style and just the way it ended up looking just kind of dovetailed, and they wanted that house. But again, I was representing the seller, not the buyer. So, but it was okay. It was my house. It was my work, right? So that's really the more, I think that's the cooler thing. That it was my work, so.
Ginger, I want to ask you, you talk about compressing time, and especially like if you're trying to compress time and get into real estate investing, what's your method of doing that? What do you suggest?
Well, there's a number of methods, but there's two basic bucket strategies. It's either ramp it up intensely with volume for a particular period of time where you know your target market, you know what you're doing specifically, and you ramp it up intensely. Or you think large projects. So either way, it's about compressing time is thinking larger. So there's two great examples of that. One was in the crash. Okay, during the mortgage crash, as many people experience a very huge shift. It was an earthquake, a massive seismic earthquake in the industry. But through that, there became massive seismic opportunities. And I took advantage of that by flipping properties. That was the days of the short sales and the REOs, and just with all the craziness, I ramped up intensely to be able to capitalize on that market. And so basically I made retirement money in a compressed period of time of just a couple of years.
So you took advantage of the opportunities that were present right after during the Great Recession, when the housing market collapsed. So a lot of people got in trouble doing that before the collapse, and you were there to pick up the pieces afterward and benefit from that.
Because I'm cheap. So that same person who bought that house for $90,000, who kept watching the market saying, this is too expensive, this is too expensive. Same person came to California in 2001. I became a mortgage broker, and I'm moving. Everything was insane. And then, but I didn't buy rentals at the time. I didn't do anything in the investment for a period of time. I just worked in the retail arena. Got my broker license. But then when all of a sudden I saw opportunities, then I moved in. So really it has a lot to do with keeping abreast of what the real opportunities are in any market and what is here right now. Now, as you know, this real estate is hyper local, right? It's very localized. So what may be hot right now or not, where people might be afraid right now, which is where you want to move in. It might be one way in California, it might be another way in Florida, it might be another way in Michigan, right? So we need to be aware of our surroundings and just target our goals. One thing I think was worth noting is when this happened, I like to say, oh yeah, I capitalized on the market. Well, the fact is, I freaked out like everybody else, like, whoa, what happened? How come my income went from here to zero overnight? And I kept working 14-hour days trying to help people get money, and everything was falling apart. At first, I didn't know, but I knew about 6 months before it was on CNN because I could feel the shakeups, and the banks were telling me, oh, we can't work with you anymore. And I'm like, what is wrong? What's going on? But I did positive affirmations. And at one point, I just got a hold of myself and I said, you know what? I need to get through this. I need to get through this on the other side and grow from this bigger than I am right now. And I did positive affirmations running at the gym with my notebook on the treadmill 45 minutes a day for 6 months before I got an idea and ideas that started sparking.
That's interesting. It took you 6 months of exercise and affirmations to kind of really dial in on what you were going to pivot to after, because it sounds like your mortgage and brokerage business dried up when the Great Recession hit. You didn't just pivot immediately, which is what people tend to think is, oh, well, I'll just pivot immediately and move into something else. But you were more deliberate and really took your time to figure out what that was going to look like.
Yes. And the other thing I continue to think is that, when you align your mind properly with what with the universal consciousness, and I don't want to get crazy, but what happened was if I had pivoted right away, it was still crashing. Everything was still crashing. So my demarcation, I can tell you month by month. I lived the Big Short. I can tell you month by month. This happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. But like in the spring of '07 is when it hit hard. It was kind of announced like in June of '07. But it wasn't until July of '09 where the bottom of the market happened. And I did my first flip in December of '09. So I do believe that number one, I was rewarded for my patience. But number two, I feel almost like the universe was guiding and guarding me to doing anything foolish, because I worked really hard to align my mind with my goals. And my objective was to get through this, to help people and help myself get through this. And because I was so targeted, I believe everything is amazing how it aligned like perfectly. I wasn't scrambling and freaking out and buying things in '08, which still would have been problematic as a flip, right? '08 was still falling down. And then, so I do believe that based on that experience, my own little tiny experience in the world is given me that faith that if I align my mind properly with what my goals are, and then work focused, and then make sure my mind is very clean with that. Because I had people who were under distress and I needed to help them, and I wanted to help them, but I couldn't think like they thought. I couldn't think depressed. I couldn't think give up. I couldn't think that way. But the 45 minutes a day helped my mind to stay on an elevated level so I could move through it.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com. If you're thinking of leaving your W-2 job and becoming a full-time real estate investor, one of the greatest costs you must consider is healthcare for you and your family. When I made this transition myself, I found the whole healthcare insurance process to be confusing and frustrating. That's why I'm glad I met Chad Creasy at RCB and Associates. Chad is a professional health insurance agent who helps real estate investors and small business owners understand and choose their best healthcare options. And best of all, his services are covered by the insurance company and won't cost you a dime. If you live in Michigan and are expecting a change in your healthcare insurance coverage for any reason, or losing employer coverage or transitioning into Medicare, then you owe it to yourself to contact Chad Creasy at rcbassociatesllc.com. Save the date for the Midwest Real Estate Investor Conference happening April 24th and 25th of 2025 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. This event is the perfect place to connect with fellow real estate investors, gain valuable insights, and elevate your real estate game. With a lineup of expert speakers and numerous networking opportunities, you won't want to miss it. That's a good way of putting it. I mean, you had to be patient to see how things were going to shake out. Things that weren't in your control, you needed to kind of wait to see what was going to happen. I lived in Santa Monica up till 2005, and we owned a condo, my wife and I. And in 2004, I said we have to sell because the market's going to crash. I always say you could see living in LA. And I lived in LA, and I could see all the construction. I knew all the stories about as soon as a community was built, there were lines out the door, people waiting, days and nights to
camping out.
Yeah, camping out to put a deposit down on one of the units. I'm like, this is not going to end well. And, I think we were a little bit early because we sold in 2005, and
better early than late.
I always say you could literally see the bubble forming and growing right there in California. Yeah. So I'm right there with you, but that's one half of what you were saying about compressing time in order to retire in like 3 years, which is volume. Take advantage of the market situation and strike when it's hot. When everyone else is running, you rush in. and you can do volume business. What was the other way? Was more
is thinking large. So what I'm thinking is multifamily, commercial, large volume. So a multifamily, you're going to get, again, goes back to, oh, if I get 6, I'm compressing time, right? Instead of 1, like going back to the Robert Allen. I have a girlfriend who compressed time she was here in California, and she bought a 52-unit apartment complex, garden style, and flipped it and renovated it, doubled the rents, and flipped it, and for multiple 7 figures in a matter of 2 years. But it took her 2 years to find it. So maybe depends on how long it takes to find that. But you're doing that so that's one way. Any type of commercial, something where it's a larger opportunity to it's basically scale. So in one way you can scale quickly with volume, or you can scale with size. So basically, those are the 2 ways to compress time, if that's of interest to you. If that's, some people just want to work and they just want to be a career person. But other people, they got to a point in life and like, oh my God, the kids are grown and I've done everything that I need to do. But my bank account's not as big as I expected at this age. And is there another opportunity for me? Or what happened to my travel plans, or my retirement, or whatever. And then other people are young and ambitious. I would highly, recommend that they look at compressing time to retire early, but not to retire early, just to have the security of knowing that the money is there, and now you can choose your path without money being necessarily a consideration, because it's handled.
I want to talk about scams, because that's one of your topics that you brought with you. How to avoid being scammed in real estate. What's your experience with that? And it sounds like you may have encountered some potential scams. What tell us the story there?
There's a lot of stories. There's a lot of ways to get scammed. I really do need to do a video on this, because it's really, I've done talks on scams. I got a PowerPoint presentation. There's a lot of details with scams. But yes, I've seen it. There's a lot of sharks in this industry, especially in the Bay Area. California is pretty rough in that area. So basically, because of what I like to do in talking about this, is to try to be as succinct as possible. Be careful of anybody who is charismatic. You don't know them. You don't know their reputation. You meet them on social media, for example. They may know the business. They may throw around credentials. You might see them, hanging out with celebrities or people who are reputable. They like to hang out with people that are reputable and then use that as a shadow. And then do background checks on anybody that you're getting in business with. If you're working with contractors, bond them, especially if you don't know them very well. Never pay them up front, pay them after the job is done, incrementally. But there's a guy who got arrested and he's in jail, like last I knew, here in the Bay Area, who was on TV, and so people think, oh, he knows what he's doing. And they were like throwing money at him. They call around here, there's a word called CDM, or the term called CDM, California dumb money. There's a lot of that floating around where people really don't know. They don't vet the people they're giving money to for private money investment. There's great opportunities out here with private money, but there's a lot of people who are either incompetent or, they're inept, or they're outright crooks. And they'll just snap your money, and they are professional, and they know exactly what they're doing. So I would say trust your instinct, number one. Number two, never, ever, ever give out money by guilt, manipulation, or fear of missing out. Never get involved with that, or under pressure of a timeline, because the deal of a lifetime comes around every 3 to 6 months. And so, but these people know what they're doing, and they prey on people who are in a weakened situation. So if you have any type of physical illness, or you have an emotional situation where life has changed for you, don't be spending your money or investing or whatever. Keep it safe until you're very, very clear. Learn how to underwrite. I say that over and over again. If you know how to underwrite, you'll do very well in this business. And then don't just throw money around. Sometimes people get a lot of money and they don't know what to do with it. So and so recommends so and they just write out checks for $100,000 or $50,000 because they don't know what to do with it. And this person promises 15%. But we have to remember that there's no return on investment until there is a return of investment. And they can promise you 50% if they never intend to give you your money back. I have seen that. They'll write a promissory note. And the other thing is be very careful about unsecured promissory notes and do the research on the property that you're investing. So I'll give you one specific example because I can give you a lot, but I'll give you one specific example. There's one particular crook who had a way of he would securitize a property. So you would give him $50,000. He would say, here's your security. Here's your promissory note. Here's your secure lien instrument. And then so you would go on to, if you went and looked at the property like 123 Main Street and you looked forensically at the title, you'd say, oh, there's a lien for $1 million from a bank. Then there's another one for 200, and then 100, and then 50, and then 25. And then, so basically he's using this house as a stack of cards saying, oh, this is going to be worth $5 million. And if you don't know what you're doing, you just write him a check. He'll say, yes, you're secured on the property. You're secured. What you don't realize is there's 20 people before you who are all secured, and it stacks like a house of cards. And then when he lets it go and he forecloses on it, everything's washed away, including your money.
To protect yourself in that situation, would you file, go through a title company and file a lien on the property, or, first lien, or? Well,
that's what I'm saying. It's liened. It's liened, but you're third and fourth and fifth and sixth and seventh. Only the bank gets first position, and then he just lets it go into foreclosure. He won't pay the contractors. He'll get some contractors to do this, won't pay them, get another ones to do this, won't pay them. As soon as they start squawking or quit, he finds somebody else. So you're walking on the property, you're seeing, wow, look at the progress. It's looking really good. And you're thinking it's moving along. Now they're filing contractor liens on top of it, but everything's washed away when it goes into foreclosure.
And that's a real situation that you've encountered.
There's a guy doing it right now in the Bay Area. He has not been picked up. I've been interviewed twice by the district attorney. And then, so this DA, he's been moved to another area. Someone else picked it up. He's been moved. He was going to go to court last I knew, and I was asked, can I testify? I said, yes, I will do that. And then I never heard again, never heard back. So he's still out and about doing his thing.
Takes a while for the law to catch up, but eventually they will, hopefully.
Yeah, well, he's been doing it for a decade.
Wow.
Probably the guy who was on TV was so public that he moved up the ladder.
You also talk about, just real quick, because we're wrapping up here, but I want to know why you believe passive income is a myth.
Passive income, as it's represented, is a myth, right? So people think buying real estate is passive income. And that's all over the place. They go buy the rentals and you're going to get passive income. But I've never seen one property manager property owner who's totally passive. My friend says the quickest way to lose your asset is to think that the property is passive. It's because either you're managing the property or you're managing the manager. So there's some sort of activity that is involved. And that's not a bad thing. It's just a thing. Just don't, like I thought when I was, I can just collect rents and buy a Jaguar. That was what I thought. And that's what I know a lot of people who get involved in real estate, they want that passive income. And it's the facts are, if you own real estate, it takes something from you. There's some activity, right? And so it's not completely passive. The better thing is, there are certain tiers like triple net leases with commercial, but even then you're dealing with some management. The people who make the most money are the banks, and they're getting the passive income. But what do? They underwrite the heck out of your loan. They underwrite you, they underwrite the property, they make sure you have money down, they make sure, they need to know everything about you. And then they give you the money, and it's always securitized. And then they sit back. So I have, for example, I've got Airbnbs, and one of my Airbnbs, I have private money. Win-win. I love it. She loves it. She's a retired woman, and she basically owns the house. And the actual heating system broke down completely over the winter. Last winter, I had to replace the entire thing. And I was laughing to myself because it was a big fiasco. It's in the middle of the winter. It's in Cleveland, Ohio, Cleveland Heights. It's freezing cold. My poor Airbnb people are freezing. They're leaving. They're freaking out, all this. And I'm figuring it out long distance. And, it took me 2 weeks to reconcile. I lost all this money. And my passive income investor, little Miss Retirement, never knew anything about it. She just got her check. So being a passive money investor, private money investor with the right person who knows what they're doing, who's not going to scam you. But so that is ultimately the best way. That's the best way to do it. That's the best way to do it. Just to get that check. But in her case, she really didn't know how to underwrite. I know how to underwrite. I explained everything to her. I would recommend that you learn how to underwrite. And if you don't, only invest with somebody that you really, really trust. They have a long history. They're honest. And of course, she's completely securitized on the property, which is cash flowing positively and everything is fine. So that's private money lending and underwriting and being like the bank is the way. That's like the number one way to get to get passive income, which is real.
Ginger, how would people find out more about you, get a hold of you, and feel free to plug any business that you might have?
I'm in the Bay Area. I'm Silicon Valley. And the easiest way would be to message me on Facebook. I'm always on that. Regularly. I just got a new social media director. I also have over 100 videos on YouTube. And then hopefully I'll be able to post this podcast as well on YouTube, whenever it gets released as well. So I would say my YouTube channel, Ginger Crystal Faith, is the easiest way to find me because I think I'm the only real estate investor with that name. And other than that, I'm on all the social media. I'm on everything. I'm more active on Facebook and YouTube.
What's your favorite hack or app?
I don't have a favorite app. OneNote, but I'd say my favorite hack is time blocking. Time blocking is my favorite hack because I get more done, when in a 3-hour block. Yeah, time blocking is my favorite hack.
Setting aside certain times during the day where you're going to take care of certain things.
Yeah, that's been the most productive. And I feel like I'm really accomplishing something when I time block. I set a timer. I've got my little timer here and I set my timer for whatever. It's like, okay, so this one's set for 3 hours. So I'm intending to, research certain commercial buildings today for 3 hours. That's like when I get off the phone with you, I'm going to talk with my contractors for 20 minutes and then start on that. So that's yeah.
Ginger, I really appreciate you coming on the show. And I feel like we could probably do a show together because you have so many different topics you can talk about. And I mean, we didn't even touch on the fact that you're in Silicon Valley, which must be an incredible place to do business in. But just compressing time so that people can retire within 3 years, the ways that you've done it, how to avoid scams, and why passive income is a myth. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Me too, Brian. Thank you very much for having me. It's fun.